2nd, 2019. This is versions B, C, and D. Question number 1, the graph of y equals x squared. So there is my graph. Then it tells me is shifted up. So you should be thinking in this unit, we talked about how this is really a d value. D equals 9. And then to the left, 1. And to the left, 1 in this case would be a c equals negative 1. Write the resulting function. So you'll have any function in transformations. We've been using the letters A, B, C, and D. And then times our function that is b x minus c. I think we did our b value on the outside, but looks something like that. And if your d value is a positive 9, then I can just write a plus 9 here. But be careful here. This one says your c value is negative 1. But notice how I'm not highlighting that negative sign. Negative 1. So if you write everything else, so the a value is a 1, the b value is a 1. So you're essentially just going to have something that looks like this. F just stands for our function. And don't forget that minus sign on the outside of the green. So then this becomes f of x plus 1 plus 9. So I'm looking for one that says plus 1 and plus 9. That would be answer D. Using the polynomial 2x cubed, so this is an odd degree. The easiest odd degree that we know is x to the first. Looks like that. Starts up, ends up. And then notice how my leading coefficient is if there's a negative sign here, that would flip these. And it doesn't, so my graph's going to look something like that. Let's just draw a graph so you can get a visual. Y-intercept of negative 8. Might look something like this, not totally sure, but just give yourself a visual. Odd degree polynomial. Okay, so based off this now, this one's tricky. So we have an odd degree, yes, odd degree. Okay, so those all match. Let's see if we can get any more clues now. The ends will point in opposite directions. So this is opposite directions. So good so far. We'll point in opposite direction. Yes. We'll point in the same direction. No. That would be an even degree. So eliminate right now. I'm going to eliminate C and D. Because same direction would be something like x squared. Just like the previous problem. That's an even degree. 2 is an even number. Okay. Whoops, I need to change the problem now. It says because the leading coefficient is positive, let's make sure you guys all have positive in there. The graph will increase from right to left. Increase from right to left. So is it going up? The answer is no. The graph will decrease. So is that going this way? If you need to, you can always exaggerate them. What's going to happen to the graph from right to left? Decrease means going down. Down. So the answer is B. Question letter 3. Identify whether the polynomial function has a even or odd or even degree and a positive or negative leading coefficient. So remember, the easiest odd we know is x to the first. It looks like that. Easiest even is parabola. And so they're the same. So in this case, they're the same. So I know that the answer is going to be a even degree. and not an odd. It's not an odd because these would be opposites. These are the same. So let's go through and cross off any odds that we have here. So odd, no odd. That's an even degree. Okay, what is the leading coefficient? The leading coefficient, if this one is positive, it's going to start up, end up. If it's negative, it's just going to flip it. So those will end down, start down, end down. So your graph will look something like this, and that's what we have here. So we have something that looks like this. We have a negative leading coefficient. So this is an even degree and a negative leading coefficient. This one is positive, so this is the correct answer would be A. Question number 4. Find the following sum. Sum means addition, so here I'm going to have to distribute. So this would give me 21x squared plus 14x and negative 35. There's a plus sign, I don't have to do anything, but I do have to distribute the 2, so I will get 2 times negative x squared gives me negative 2x squared, and then 2 times 3 gives me 6. So I have 21x squared and a negative 2x squared. That gives me 19x squared. So those are wrong. And then I have a 14x. That one doesn't have 14x. And then I have negative 35 plus 9 gives me negative 29. So that would be letter D. Question number 5 says graph the function f of x equals x plus 2 squared, x minus 3. So this one, if you set x plus 2 equals 0 to 0 and you subtract 2, you get x equals negative 2. X equals negative 2. If we look at its multiplicity, the multiplicity is the number above. That's 2. That's an even. So evens, what we do is we do something called a bounce or a kiss. And then x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3 to both sides. X equals 3. So the multiplicity there is a 3. So it is an odd. So odds, you do something called shoot-throughs. So let's look at x equals negative 2 with a bounce. There's negative 2. There's a bounce. Negative 2 here has a, that would be an example of shooting through. So my answer is A. Answer is A. Let me go through the other ones so you can kind of see why also. X equals 3. So here's x equals 3. That is a shoot through. It's shooting through the x-axis. Over here, this would be a bounce, which would be incorrect. Let's count up our points. 2 points for a first name, last name, nice, and period. That's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would equal 12 on the front side. All right, let me go over the back side, versions B, C, and D. Okay, it threw me off a little bit on the first question. Sketch a set. Set means multiple, right? Like you play tennis and you have to play a couple of sets. That means it's more than one. Functions whose product means what? That multiplies times builds a cubic function with the given characteristics. So how do you build a cubic function? You can do a linear times a quadratic, or you can do linear times linear times linear. Explain your reasoning. Explain means words, okay? So you have these zeros. X equals negative 2. X equals 2. And x equals 3. Notice how there's no multiplicity there, which means that it's a shoot through in all of those. Okay? Now, if you just have the accurate graph, I gave you 3 points. Or if you didn't have an explanation, I also gave you 3 points. If they're both correct with some kind of silly mistake in there, I also gave you 3 points. my explanation is that a linear times a quadratic produces a cubic. Okay? A common mistake was to have a plus sign. You cannot say x to the first plus x to the second equals x to the third. That's wrong. Okay? If you said the words linear and quadratic or linear and, I don't know what the word and means. So you have to be specific in terms of that. If you just drew a cubic function, that was also a CM, common mistake, because you have to draw a set. So I may have given you, if you drew a cubic or somehow your points just go through the x-intercepts, and I gave you 2 points. Question number 7, Ken, or Inky. Fill in the blank squares so that each row and each column contain all the digits 1 through 4. Numbers and cages may repeat as long as they are not in the same row or column. So the first thing you're going to do is you're only going to use the numbers 1 to 4. You find a pen that works. And basically you cannot repeat these numbers in a column nor a row. Now what's hard about it is that they have math operations and they have things called cages. For example, this cage says there's 3 numbers that multiply to be 24, and I cannot repeat any of the numbers. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for any freebies, which means there's numbers without any math operations and it's darkened or boldened all the way around. I don't see any numbers, so in some ways sometimes you might have to kind of guess. Maybe for 12, the only 2 numbers that multiply to be 12 from these combination of numbers is 3 and 4. That means any 2 numbers that divide to be 2, that has to be either 4 and 2 or 2 and 1. In this case, I can't put a 4 and 2 here because that would repeat 4, so I put 2 and 1. Again, 2 numbers that multiply to be 12 is 3 and 4. Then I have a 2 left over. Here's another way you can think about it. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So I need 2 numbers that divide to be 12. Well, that's 3 and 4. 2 numbers that multiply to be 1 and to be 3. 2 numbers that divide to be 2. And 3 numbers that multiply to be 8. You'll notice that there's no repeating numbers this direction or in this direction. You got 4 points if that was correct, or 1 point if you tried it and it was incorrect. Question number 8. This was the day we did the flipped classroom where you watched and you took notes, and then the second day you were supposed to record and explain that you understood it. F of x equals negative x plus 6 squared times x minus 1 squared. What does this function look like? Well, I don't really want to expand this as x plus 6, x plus 6. You could, be a lot of work. Not necessary. And x minus 1, x minus 1. What I did here is I just said, well, this is just x squared, and this is x squared. So x squared times x squared, you can add the exponents as x to the 4th. So this is a quartic function. Quartic function is just like an x squared. They're in the same family. They're even degrees. So it starts up, ends up. But in this problem, it has a negative leading coefficient, which means it's going to switch where the arrows are at. So it's going to start down and end down. Now, we learned in that video that if you set each of those equal to 0, well, this repeats, so I'm just going to keep it as x plus 6 equals 0. I apply the 0 product rule, means to solve for x, I'll just subtract 6 on both sides. X is equal to negative 6. They call this a 0, and the reason why they call that a 0 is because the y-coordinate is actually 0 here. What's its degree or multiplicity? You look above and you see that 2 right there, which just means it's an even degree, and we call that a kiss. X equals x minus 1 is the same thing as x equals 1. Well, how do I get that? If you set it equal to 0, add 1 to both sides, these cancel, x is equal to 1. Remember, it has a degree or multiplicity of 2, and the reason why it has a 2 is here. Again, if you separate them, if you put them back together, you'll see that it is a 2. That's why they call it a double root, because there's actually 2 of them, same exact thing. Remember, they call that an even or kiss. This is an even number, so it's going to kiss off. So let me show you how I would draw this. I have the characteristics of starting down, and when I approach negative 6, I need to bounce, which means it comes bouncing off. And as I approach this one, I also have to do a bounce or a kiss.
and then I have to end down here, and this is what my graph looks like. You got, to get 4 points, you had to have all of these characteristics. It's a quartic even degree function, so the arrow's in the same direction. End behavior, starts down, ends down. The zeros, meaning where it bounces, and the multiplicity. And the leading coefficient too. That it flips. Instead of starting up, it goes down. If you made 1 to 2 mistakes, then I gave you 3 points. I give you 2 points if you just drew a quartic function, but maybe you didn't label it, or you didn't show me where the zeros are. Question number 9. Draw the polynomial function with the following characteristics. 2 imaginary zeros. Zeros at x equals 2 and negative 3. And this end behavior here. Now, to give you an idea of what you're drawing, if you have 2 imaginary zeros, and here's a real 0, another real 0, 2 plus 2 is 4, you have 4 zeros, which means you have a quartic function. It's an even degree. Okay? What does that mean? Well, we had a formula here, extremas equals degree minus 1. So if your degree is 4, that means we're going to have 3 extremas, or 3 turning points. Okay? What does this end behavior look like? As x approaches negative infinity, so as the x values are going towards the negative numbers, this direction, it says f of x approaches negative infinity. So on the y-axis, you're going to go towards the negative number, which is down. As x approaches positive infinity, which means you're going towards the right, what happens when you go to the right? The graph is going to go down. So notice here, it's down and down. That's why I have these 2 arrows here. I have to go through 2 and negative 3. And as I draw this graph, I want to have 3 turning points. So I'm going to shoot through here. And the reason why I'm shooting through and not bouncing off is because these, it doesn't tell us you have a multiplicity of 2. Now, the reason why I had a bump here is those are my 3 turning points, or extremas. 1, 2, 3. And I go through there. My graph looks something like that. How did I score that one? If you had all of these correct, I gave you 4 points. 3 points if you had 1 or 2 are wrong. If you had at least one of those correct, then I'm going to at least give you 2 points. Question number 10 was a most missed question. Number 10 says for f of x equals x cubed minus 4. Write the rule of each function. Remember, the rule is that ax plus d 1 over b y minus c. No, I'm sorry, that's a d. Let's try that again. Ax plus d. No, that was a c. And so if I look at this value here, I just have ax minus d in this case. So the graph, no, that was a d. I have them mixed up. Try that again. Ay minus d, this is 1 over bx minus c. So your d value is in our case, is going to be plus d. So here, the transformation is you're going to go down 4. Well, down 4 means you subtract 4 from all the y values. There is no parentheses, so you're not really plusing or adding anything. So if you just left it blank or you put plus 0, so these were 1 point apiece. What's the transformation? Well, the only transformation here is you just have this minus 4. And if you recognize it was a d value, all you had to write was going down or shifted down 4 units. In this last part, it says to simplify the following. G of x equals f to the x plus 2. Now, if you write f of x, alright, question 10C. This is probably the most missed question, number 10. Simplify the following. You're given the function g of x equals f of x plus 2. If you just recopied that, that's not an attempt to the problem. That's why I gave you a 0 and not a 1. It's saying in the function of g, I want you to use the f function, but don't use the f function. Put in x plus 2 into it. So here is f of x. This is f of x. F of x is the x value cubed minus 4. And what you did is that for every x value, let me write this, this might help. This helped me. Instead of every x value, you're going to write x plus 2. So every x value in that function, you're writing x plus 2. Well, you have to simplify. That's what it says, simplify. What does that mean? I have x plus 2 cubed minus 4. So that means I have to write this x plus 2 3 times. X plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 2. If I do it the first 2 times, I have x times x gives x squared. 2 times x equals 2x. X times 2 gives me 2x, and 2 times 2 gives me 4. So you multiply, and then you combine like terms. So I have x squared, 4x plus 4. So I did the first 2. Now the third one, x plus 2, now I have a trinomial times a binomial. And that's why it's going to have 6. The reason why it's going to have 6 boxes is it's kind of like 3 times 2 is going to be equal 6. So now I have x times x squared, which gives me x cubed. X times 4 is 4x squared. X times 4 is 4x. X squared times 2 is 2x squared. 2 times 4x is 8x. And 2 times 4 is 8. When I multiply x plus 2 3 times, I get this as my answer. Now, this was a common mistake for getting that negative 4. Well, do I need the parentheses with that minus 4? The answer is no. 8 minus 4 is 4, and this is your answer. To get some partial credit on that problem, if you at least put in x plus 2 into the function of f of x, then at least gave you 2 points. That side was 24 points. And then 24 plus 12 gives you, the test was out of 36.